Good morning, grade 9 students. I see that none of you are online this morning. So that's something that once you see this video, that you'll need to improve on is your attendance for my classes. So today I'm going to record the lesson for you based on the American Revolution. And in our previous lessons, we learned about the Enlightenment in Europe. Now, Enlightenment was all about the new knowledge, the new science that was starting to develop, the new way of thinking that started developing in Europe during this time period. And we see that this time period also started in the 16th and 17th centuries. So we've looked at previous lessons and we came to a conclusion that this period in Europe had one main focus. Actually, two. It was the way of their thinking, and secondly, it was that science was going to be their savior. And science and art and music and theater and knowledge and education was all part of this thinking. So each part of Europe had their own role. And today's lesson, we will see, if we think about the previous lessons, that now we see a new lesson, America Revolts. What does revolts mean? Revolts means to rebel, to go against the system, because each country in Europe had their own way of wanting to do things. And now we see that in this lesson, it says here that Britain comes into existence. So now a new place is forming upon uniting the governments of England and Scotland in 1707. So here we see that England and Scotland, they united, they became one. A new kingdom was born. What was this kingdom's name? The kingdom was known as the United Kingdom of Britain. The existence of such a kingdom appeared after the Glorious Revolution, which took place in 1688 and led to the development of a Bill of Rights, which granted the Parliament the right to set laws. So upon uniting these two governments, England and Scotland, they started to develop their own Bill of Rights. What is a Bill of Rights? Their own laws, their own set of ideas put into place in order to govern this country. As a result, the Parliament worked with the monarchs, who selected their own ministers to help them in setting laws. Things changed with the death of Queen Anne, who had no heir. So I would like you to underline this as well. So things started to change when Queen Anne died. Why? A new dynasty ruled by Protestant rulers of the German state of Hanover was established in 1714 upon granting them the crown, since they were the nearest relatives to Queen Anne. This, however, is going to cause problems. Why? When Queen Anne died, she had no heir. A heir is someone who takes over once you have died or once you are too old. And they were German. That's now going to cause a communication problem. The new rulers, George I and George II, were not aware of the British system. See, they weren't aware of how the British system worked, and they had to now govern it, and did not know any English. Accordingly, their ministers were entitled to deal with the Parliament. In 1757, William Pitt became the head of cabinet and could acquire Canada and India upon participating in the 7 Years' War. So now a 7 Years' War is going to happen. Britain remained powerful in North America. You see, this is the reason why America wanted to revolt. They wanted to rebel against this because they wanted to govern their own country. Britain wanted to be powerful everywhere during this time period. And they could not control 13 colonies on the eastern coast of the United States. The prosperous colonies attracted people and reached a population of almost 1 million by 1750. The colonies had their own legislatures. Legislatures means like laws and systems put into place. And their merchants refused to allow the British government to interfere in their own affairs. So now we see America doesn't like this idea of Britain bringing their ideas to them. And that is also one of the reasons today why America is so powerful, is because even during these times, we see in history that even then, America would never take things lying down. They would always fight for their freedom. That is why we have something called Independence Day. So let's look further into what this is. And here we see Hints to Remember, and that you can read on your own. That was the Glorious Revolution, what that was all about. So you need to know that as well. And here we see that the American Revolution now starts to kick off. Kick off means it begins. After the 7 Years' War, the British who occupied the colonies in North America decided to gain more revenues. Revenues means taxes, money from these colonies, and use them to cover war costs. So now we see that what the British are doing to the Americans, they're starting to tax them in their own land. Who does that? Okay, so this is the reason why America started rebelling. They started revolting against the British system. As such, they taxed the colonies, and as a result, heated protests. Protests are like marches and resentment, okay, and resentment among the colonists. So here we see what this causes, and this is one of the reasons why we also learn history, is so that we can learn from these past mistakes when it comes to things like politics and how countries are governed, etc. Even though we know that still today the world is not a perfect place, but this is the main reason why we learn history, so that we can mold and shape the future, and that these mistakes don't get made again. In September 1774, a group of colonial delegates organized the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia and denounced taxation without representation. I want you to take your pen, please, and I would like you to annotate that. And denounced taxation without representation. So here we see that the colonial delegates, they organized their First Continental Congress. That means their first meeting to come to terms, to try and mediate, to try and fix this problem. They denounced taxation without representation. To denounce taxation means they were against it. They spoke badly about it. They didn't want it. The armed conflict eventually kicked off in April 1775 after the skirmishes between the British troops and colonial militiamen in Lexington and Concord. So here we see that we first had the Glorious Revolution. I told you that Hints to Remember on the previous page. That was all about the bloodless revolution. But now we see that there's armed troops, there's armed forces in this battle. So now it becomes a sort of a war. By the following summer, the rebels waged a full war on their independence. So now who's the rebels? Who's the ones revolting? It's the Americans, okay? So by the following summer, these rebels, the Americans, they wanted their freedom. They wanted their independence. They wanted to be free of bondage. They didn't want to be bonded to the British, okay? They waged a full war for their independence. They weren't going to take this. And this is what we can also learn from history, is that, you know, when people wrong you, when a system is wrong, when a country is wronged or trying to be harmed by another one, you need to stand together and you need to fight for your independence. July 4, that marks Independence Day. 1776 marked the Declaration of Independence, which was approved in the Second Continental Congress. So now it's been approved. Their independence, their freedom to decide for themselves. It was approved, okay, in this Continental Congress, which I told you is a meeting. In 1778, France joined the war and supported the colonists, a fact which changed the nature of the war from being civil to becoming international. So now the whole of Europe is getting involved. Why? If you go back to the previous lesson, we see that there came a time in Europe when it was known as the Age of Enlightenment, the European Revolution. And this is what the Europeans were fighting for. They were fighting for systems. They were fighting for their independence, for their freedom. They were fighting for science, for all of these factors that influenced and impacted on the development of Europe. So now it became an international story. The Americans faced several setbacks. Setbacks means there were a lot of challenges for them between 1779 and 1781. These included the defection of General Benedict Arnold to the British and the first serious mutinies within the Continental Army. So here we see some of the things that happened. In 1781, the British surrendered at Yorktown. So now the British surrender because the Americans, they were rebelling, they were revolting, they were fighting against the system. So the British had to give in, they had to surrender, they had to put up their guns and say, we cannot fight this war anymore. Virginia, and the Americans won their independence. They won, they revolted. War did not officially end, though, before 1783. British forces kept their stations around Charleston, while the powerful main army continued to reside in New York. Though neither side would take decisive action over the better part of the next 2 years, the British started withdrawing their troops. And now the British start withdrawing. They start going back from Charleston and Savannah in late 1782, thus declaring the end of the conflict. So now it's the end of the conflict. The British surrender and the Americans have won their independence. British and American negotiators are people like mediators. They make peace between the two countries. So they had this negotiation meeting in Paris, signed preliminary peace terms in Paris late that November. And on September 3, 1783, Great Britain formally recognized the independence of the United States in the Treaty of Paris. So now they recognize the United States as independence. Please turn over to the next page. Now, the next question to ask is, right, so the Americans, they eventually get their independence. Hi guys, can you hear me? Good morning, grade 9s.
Good morning.
Have you guys been listening to the lesson?
Yes, teacher.
Good. Are you learning?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Good. Okay, now I want you to continue.
I'm not.
Okay, we're going to continue.
I don't care.
Okay, so grade 9s, as we see here now on the next page, the revolution, how do I do this now? Okay, so overthrowing the British had many effects on Britain and the American continent. Lord North, the Prime Minister of Britain, resigned in disgrace after he could not put an end to the violence in the colonies. The British evacuated Georgia and went back to South Carolina. The last British troops left New York in November 1783 together with many loyalists and former slaves. The leaders in the new country were those prominent either in the council halls or on the fields of the revolution. So now, grade 9s, what I would like you to do. Are you there, boys? Are you all there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want you to listen. Remember, this lesson is being recorded. Okay, so I want you to remain disciplined. We can see your activity on the screen. Okay. So what I want you to do now, boys, is to read the rest of the page. And I want you to use the skill that you were taught in English, is to summarize and to also make the text shorter. So take some notes, and you will also see on the next page the following. Here's your activity. So I want you to answer these questions and also highlight important information in the text. So that's what I need you to do for now. Now the next, I will answer questions at the end. The next thing I'd like you to do is to answer these questions. And if you have lost your book, I know some of you have lost your book, I would like you to please also take pictures of your friends' books for now, or go to school and request a new book. And when you are done, boys, please take a picture of this and send it to Mr. Abdul Salam on WhatsApp, and he will send your homework to me. So now we'll unmute you. Remember, you are being recorded.
Mister, I'm finished. The
Okay,
homework.
good. When you are finished with your homework, take a photo of it and send it to
Teacher,
Mr.
I have a
Abdul Salam.
question.
Any
Teacher,
other questions, boys?
I have a question.
Okay, I'm taking questions now. Just stop.
I lost
Can
my
you
book.
hear me?
Who's that?
Can you
Abdullah
hear me?
Ahmed? Abdulaziz?
Can you hear me? Can
Yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
Can you
Okay,
hear
so
me?
your book. I need
Hello?
you to go to school, okay, to Mr. Abdul Salam, or WhatsApp him, get your mom or dad to phone him so that we can arrange for a book for you. Okay?
Mister, I sent to Mr. Ahmed Abdul Salam the homework.
Yes, on WhatsApp, or yes, for now,
Okay.
and I'll ask him to send
Okay.
it to me.
I send it.
Okay, shukran, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, boys, work hard. You will be writing an exam. Remember, all these sessions that I have with you for social studies will be recorded. Your attendance will be taken. Your participation on the recorded videos will be taken as well. And these will also be uploaded to YouTube and sent to the school. So please, I want you ready to start focusing on your work. We're in difficult times and we need to keep you guys learning. That's the main important thing. Okay?
Okay.
Hey, boys, keep well. Assalamu alaikum.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله
عليكم
وبركاته.
السلام. Thank you, teacher, for the lesson.
Afwan, afwan.
يلا مع السلامة.